Welcome to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Vic the Producer, and joining me as always is uh Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, we're here to put a bow on the Rams 2024/2025 season. They start 1-4. They go on a run there. They finish 9-3 there, and then their final record was 10-7. They make the playoffs, and now we're here. They get eliminated by the Philadelphia Eagles, so we're here to kind of put a bow on this season for the Rams. But let's go ahead and the way I kind of wanted to start this, in kind of changing it up from last season. um just your thoughts on the 2024/2025 Rams season for yourself.
Yeah, it was another season where you're able to take a step ahead. It didn't feel like a big step because I think a lot of people came into 2024, expecting a legit Super Bowl contender team, and I'm not sure if that ever materialized, but there was always a threat of it. Okay, if you get into the dance, you probably have a chance. If you win a game here, which you did against Minnesota, you never know in Philadelphia. So it was always a team that he wanted to avoid, but never felt like a big dog. So to me, maybe in that sense, it felt like they didn't take too many steps there because again, you take Detroit, and push them to the limit in the wild card of last year. But how much? I guess the NFC West title is a big deal, but not really when you care about Super Bowl titles. So for me, it was a similar season to 2023 because of poor start, and then picking it up at the end. But to me, I will focus on the playoff win. I will focus on the NFC West title. But to me, there's something there where it felt a little disappointing at times. But hey, it just comes with the season. There's a lot of ups and downs. You have a sluggish ending to the regular season with the offense, but the defense stepped up. That's a big win right there. And then obviously you got the big wins, like beating Minnesota twice. Having some games like that too. So I'm trying to look at it from all different point of views, and also in the back of my mind, and we're going to talk about it too. Is like, okay, well, where does the future go if Matthew Stafford is not involved? What if Cooper Cup is not involved? But at the same time, it's like, well, that defense is really good too. So it's kind of a unique offseason for a team that did a lot of good things in 2024 because of Stafford and Cup there, which we'll break down here. But overall, it's got to be a success because of the steps forward that you took at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the fact that you look at the defense, you look at special teams, they played way above what everybody thought coming into the season. I think the biggest disappointment was the offense not being consistent enough. But in terms of, was it a successful season? Yeah, I mean, they won the division. I think not a lot of people had them winning this division. And then number two, they won a playoff game, Gilbert. And I think that's always, even with everything that happened, with we're still dealing with wildfires here in LA. And for them to go to Arizona, get a big win over a 14 win team in the Vikings, and then being, on the doorstep of being able to win a game against Philadelphia, I think it's a successful season. Now, as you said, this is where we kind of go and we start looking ahead here. So just for those of you who are joining us in this episode, not only are not we just shared our takeaways in terms of what we saw in the season, but we'll start looking ahead now to the off season. We'll get into all the Rams coaching and player changes that we might see. We've already gotten a couple things that have come out, and we'll get to that in news and notes, Gilbert. And then of course we'll talk about the two big, you know uh I guess, changes that might happen, and that has to do with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup. So we'll get into all that. But do you have a talking about those two names? Do you have an engagement question for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, help us get started with this show here. We do call it a wrap up show, but I like to look ahead more than look behind. So I bring the question to you for the engagement question of the week. Will the Rams bring back Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup? Let us know in the comments. I guess give us in two different versions. One, do you think the Rams do it, bring him back? Maybe both or one. What do you think? But then also, what do you want the Rams to do? Do you think Cooper Cup goes because that's because he's older and the team says, you know what, we don't want to pay you, but you want Cooper Cup to stay? Let us know in the comments too as well. So uh honestly, I put it this way: if Stafford is back, which I think he will be, they'll look for a way to make it work with Cooper Cup. You know, I don't know if Cooper Cup wants to chase the money, or he cares more about being where he's been for the last, you know, whatever. I forget what year, 20, sorry, 2017 he was drafted. So it's been a minute for him. And does he want to take his family and move somewhere else? You don't know. You got that's the things to think about in free agency. So if Stafford is back, I think Cooper Cup will probably be back, maybe on a different contract. But you never know. And then also it'll be very weird if both of them are gone too. So I don't even know if that's an option. So we'll see. But it's something we're gonna break down here in a bit, and I want to hear people in the comments let us know too.
Yeah, I mean, we thought maybe last season there was a chance, but they just had, they would have taken a massive cap hit for both of those guys. It's not as bad for this upcoming season. So, like you said, there is that chance they can restructure his contract, or he decides he wants to stay and restructure his contract. But we never know. He also put out a tweet and with the video, kind of, going over his season. So he's still, like I said, he's gonna go into his age 32 season, and we know that with a lot of receivers, that's when they start declining, and so he is not a $30 million receiver at this point in his career. So
Hmm.
a lot of things to kind of consider as we move forward here with the Rams. But I wanted to share this comment from our friend Alonso Takanga. He says, crazy to think that the Rams season could have gone so differently if they hadn't somehow upset the 49ers in week 3. Even the Vikings came into town and were talks of blowing it up. So yeah, I remember, I mean, there was a whole perhaps trading Matthew Stafford, perhaps trading Cooper Cup, and then everything just changed. And that's the thing with the NFL, Gilbert. It's a marathon. And you just never know. I mean, that's why I'm kind of glad that they moved the trading deadline further back. Because if they hadn't, maybe who knows? The Rams do decide, hey, we'll just go ahead and blow it up here.
Yeah, because we always talk about 1-4. Imagine being 0-5, but they don't get that victory there.
Yep.
So, and then 0-5, not a lot of teams come back from that. So maybe it changes their mindset too. But who knows? Maybe the Rams were able to overcome, could have been able to overcome 0-5. It's a difficult thing to do. But yeah, that's one victory right there. Obviously, the game against the Vikings was surprising too as well. There was a lot of games out there, that could have just, not gone their way. And I really think they won that game against the Vikings in the playoffs because it got somewhat of a bye week in week 18. So
Yeah.
if you don't win some of these early games in the season when you were struggling, you don't get that week off in week 18 where you're having to play. Like, who knows? What if they did have to play Seattle in week 18 for the division and they end up losing that game too?
Yeah, and you never know. And then we just got news about Matthew Stafford's ribs, which we'll get into. But yeah, which was also interesting. Kind of getting that news as well. But the other thing too, Gilbert, that I thought about too, before the season, we talked about those 2 Thursday night games and playing on short rest. They went 4-0 on Sunday. They beat the Raiders, and then they beat the Vikings, and then they beat was it, I know it was the 49ers. I forget who the team before that. I think it was the Bills. So they beat the Bills and the 49ers back to back. So that was pretty impressive as well. That's when they kind of went on that run. So I mean, your season can change just like that, especially doing it 2 years in a row where you just take off after the bye, and that was another thing that was pretty impressive. Sean McVay became the first coach to take a team that was 3 games under 500 and take it to the playoffs 2 years in a row. So that was another good accomplishment for the Rams. All right, Gilbert, let's get to news and notes. And the latest news that we just got, like maybe within this hour, Gilbert, was that the Bears have requested Rams assistant head coach and passing game coordinator Aubrey Pleasant to interview for their vacant defensive coordinator's job under Ben Johnson. And this one was a bit of a surprise for me, Gilbert, just because I had heard that Dennis Allen was the guy that was going to get the job. But that's pretty cool that Aubrey Pleasant is getting an interview from the Bears.
Yeah, they were together in Detroit for a bit, right? Ben Johnson
Yep.
and Aubrey Pleasant. And sometimes they give you a front runner, but you know how it is. You have to go through the whole process, and hopefully Aubrey gets a good look there. And It's not just checking off a box to give Dennis Allen the job, but we'll see how it works out there. Same thing with, I think it was Mike Brable when he got hired. Everybody just assumed it's going to be Josh McDaniels, but you gotta have a couple interviews before you hire somebody. So you know how it is with the Rooney Rule, which I don't really like.
I didn't. Well, that was going to be my question. I didn't know you were supposed to do follow the Rooney Rule for the assistants. I knew about the head coach.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that for it qualifies for coordinators too. I could maybe be wrong. I got to double check the rules on the Rooney Rule, which nobody seems to care about anyways. But even if it doesn't, I know they used to be in place. It's just not a good look to also hire somebody that quickly, and then we're over here complaining about the Rooney Rule for head coaches, and then you do it for the coordinators. It just doesn't make sense. I think for
Yeah.
me, you got to align it or change all the rules, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he has a legit shot there. But yeah, it's a good connection, and that's the thing about working and if you work in different stops, and when you're paying your dues and you're grinding as a coach, you get to know a lot of people, and the more people you have in your contact book, the more opportunities you're going to get in the future. Because say you're working with that person as a film game analyst, on the bottom of the totem pole. Well, somebody could go the other way and speed up a little higher, and then they'll bring up the friend for an interview too. So
Yeah.
you never know in football.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it happens a lot. We've seen it, and yeah, it's pretty sad the way that works. But I mean, that's why I keep saying I like when a lot of these head coaches, like kind of what we're gonna see with Dan Campbell and him losing now three coaches off his staff, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and his D line coach. I kind of would want to see him go outside, the go outside of his circle, and be able to go find guys that he can replace them with outside of his coaching tree. There are people, outside of people that he knows, I guess, is my main point. But moving on here, Gilbert, the Rams passing coordinator and tight ends coach Nick Caley is rumored to be joining Aaron Glenn's staff with the Jets as the OC. That was someone you mentioned during the post game show. So there you go. It sounds like Nick Caley is gonna also be leaving. At least he's on the way out of another guy that gets poached from Sean McVay's coaching staff.
Yeah, he was getting looks from Mike Brable, New England, before he hired Josh McDaniels, and everybody pretty much knew about that one. But yeah, there's a reason why, they want to work with him. If Sean McVay was interested to say, what is that guy doing over there in New England? And obviously, we know Sean McVay is well connected. He probably heard good things, and he probably interviewed really well too. And then you see what the tight ends did for, I guess, when Tyler Higbee came back. He played pretty well right away. Yeah, you saw the pass game coordinator, work with Stafford. So all that kind of helps you out too. And it wasn't the best season for the offense, but they won the division. They won a playoff game, and you work under Sean McVay. You worked with Matthew Stafford. People are going to be interested in you.
Yeah, especially with when you look at the coaching tree and how well it's been doing. I understand why. Like I said, I saw people saying that they didn't see the Rams losing any coaches, and I'm like, I don't know. It seems like every season they go and get a bunch of coaches from his staff. So I'm not surprised. I say I guess the over under would be two. And, right now with what we're seeing with Ari Pleasant and then Nick Caley, I'm sure there's going to be other guys that we don't know that they're going to try and poach from him. Just moving on here, Gilbert Jared Verse is named to the. He was named the the rookie defensive player of the year by the Pro Football Writers of America. Braden Fisk made the All Rookie team, so well deserved. Something you've been saying that I was just kind of curious in terms of uh, if Jared Verse had the sack numbers, just because it's a when it comes to the defensive player of the year, it goes to it's kind of a stats award, and so I just didn't know. I know he has the pressures, but we know how it is with sacks. People want to see those sack numbers be up there. Braden Fisk finished with the most sacks for the rookies with 8.5 in the NFL. So that was good to see him make the all rookie team. But yeah, it's starting to look like Jared Verse will be the defensive rookie of the year when it's announced during NFL honors.
Yeah, sometimes, I get that sacks get a lot of attention, and they're easy to look at when you're not watching the games, but being on prime time helps out, and when you're watching these prime time games with the Rams, you're looking at Jared Verse like, oh, that guy pops, he stands out, and then you find yourself trying to do a little more research. It's like, what is he's like leading the NFL or one of the top guys in pressure? Is probably all rookies leading in that too. So it's easy to see that he makes an impact, and that's always what I'm looking for. And you don't have to be the biggest NFL tape head and watching film all day and knowing the X's and O's. Like if you're just watching a game and the announcer's calling this guy's name constantly over and over again, like number eight, number eight, number eight, Jared Verse at Florida State, the number 19 pick in the NFL. There's a reason for that. This guy is able just to pop on film and make it easier to watch. And just like I kept talking about in the post game show, I really enjoyed watching Jalen Carter and Jared Verse go at it. Two of the best young defensive players in the NFL. And it was just easy to see how they were living in the backfield, um, making a lot of great moves and applying pressure, like things that you don't see in a stat sheet that disrupt an offense. That's what Jared Verse did. And then, I think once you get some publicity and people talk about you, and he wasn't the most he didn't have the biggest brand or biggest profile, from the
Hmm.
rookies until the Philly game where he talked crap about the Eagles fans. And, that's probably going to
Oh
benefit
yeah.
him in the long run for like when these names pretty consistently. But, once I started doing some voting for SI and the PFWA, and then you start seeing how people are thinking the same way, it's pretty obvious that he's going to get it for the AP. He was the rookie of the year too.
Yeah, and that it's well deserved. Sometimes like you said, you don't need to look at the stats or even be a tape head to realize what the talent and what he's contributing out there and why he is the rookie of the year. And by the way, Fernando, our compa Fernando Ramirez, he picked him as his rookie of the year before
Oh,
the season. So
shout out to him.
shout out to him for picking Jared Verse to be the rookie of the year, and it's looking like he got that one right. Yeah, and then one more thing I was gonna add to Jared Verse, I saw a TikTok I think today where it was an Arizona Cardinals fan who was like, "Man, I just had to deal with Aaron Donald for 10 years, and now they pick up Jared Verse, and now I got to deal with Jared Verse." Punking my my quarterbacks. I can't deal with this anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a credit to Les Snead, and they're in a way they're a little similar because well, obviously that draft was a Khalil Mack draft, and he was top 5 in 2014. Then you have this smaller defensive tackle at a Penn State, and it was no, it's
Pitt,
Pitt. Sorry,
Pitt,
Pitt.
yeah,
I know somewhere in Pennsylvania, but Pitt
yeah,
and number 13, and it's like you don't think about a player who's that good to go number 13. And the same thing now with Jared Verse, number 19. He fell all the way to 19th. And let's not forget the first 14 picks were offensive players, or maybe first
yeah.
13 after Brock Bowers. I forget. No, it was 14 because it was Fuaga from the Saints there. So the first 14 picks were all offensive players. That's why you kind of get a player that good at number 19.
Yeah, and I mean they benefited. And like I said, I know we got a lot of people who wanted Brock Bowers, but in the end, I mean, you keep your first round pick and then you hit on it. We'll see if they keep their first round pick again next season. We'll talk about that, Gilbert, coming up. Um, and then our last thing here in terms of story, news and notes. Kelly Stafford said on our podcast that Matthew Stafford cracked 4 ribs against the 49ers in week 15. Stafford aggravated the injury against the Eagles on Sunday and acknowledged after the game that he had been dealing with a rib injury for some time now. The biggest thing out of this is you said that you can kind of see that he had a rib injury. He got hit in that Eagles game, but I think the biggest thing here is the fact that he wasn't on the injury report, Gilbert, and that might be a problem when it comes to the Rams for not reporting the injury. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes your wife goes on a podcast or on her own podcast and spills the beans, and that might cost the Rams, a big old fine now.
Yeah, I get why you hide that as a quarterback. You don't want defensive players
Yep.
attacking the rib cage there, and yeah, you could tell once he got hit. I think it was Quinion Mitchell hit him with the shoulder there,
They
and
both got hurt on the same
yeah,
play.
they both got hurt there. and you could tell he was dealing with something. Then the broadcast said he had to get a bunch of heating pads in the rib area. So, and he came back to his credit. He's a warrior. He was battling. He didn't want
Yeah.
to miss time, but you got to report that stuff. So Kelly Stafford, putting her husband on blast there with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. He says Alonso said she keeps spilling the beans, laugh out
Yeah,
loud.
it's
Yeah.
good content for the podcast, but
Oh yeah.
not good for the quarterback.
Yep. All right, Gilbert, let's get to the Rams offseason storylines. The reason we're kind of going into this too is just to kind of look ahead, but at the same time, you're not going to be here for a couple months, so I kind of want to pick your brain here, just so I can have some content for people. We'll have more people on, and I'll pick their brain in terms of what's going to happen with this Rams team during the offseason. So up first, I mean, we know what's going on with Matthew Stafford. You've talked about it. He's got about a $50 million cap hit coming, but there's not a lot of guarantee money coming in. He's got like a base salary about $25 million, which is way below. Like that's half of what a lot of the high end quarterbacks are getting paid right now, and he should be a top. He should be getting paid like a top 10 quarterback. Now, the question, I guess for both teams, for both sides, Stafford and the Rams, they can each kind of go their own way if they want. But for the Rams, they don't have a contingency plan or a backup guy or anything that they can rely or fall on for, unless they want to go and get Sam Darnold or someone like that. And it seems like Matthew Stafford has the leverage. So how do you see this playing out? I know we talked about it a lot during the post game show, but just to kind of refresh
Yeah.
people on your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Stafford does have the leverage, but I'll say this about, less need and the Rams and the way they operate. Everything they've done since 2022 is get younger at every position. So there's a reason why they weren't so quick to pay him this past summer. They were like, okay, cool, we'll do a 1 year revised contract where we still have an option to get out of it next year. Like, the thing about the Rams, and we've talked about it here before many times, they don't care about dead money. So yes, there'll be a lot of dead money
Yep.
on the books there, but it doesn't affect your salary cap, how you operate. Stan Kroenke has a lot of money to pay the dead money there. So anytime you see the positive when in the cap savings, they're gonna probably think about it. And
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, if he gets cut, the team will save not much, but $300,000. But at least it's not gonna kill you if you're having to cut somebody like Russell Wilson, or that year that Tom Brady retired, and you're against it there on the salary cap. So the Rams also have some kind of leverage here, and if they have a plan that we're not aware of, and they want to get younger, regardless of what happened this year, that's why they wanted this out here for 2026, 2025. Maybe they do it. I don't know. I don't know why would you do that? Maybe they're thinking about something else. Maybe they're ready for the future and they want to rebuild, because every time you keep winning with playoff teams, you're not going to have a top pick here. So uh, to me, it'll be a little bit of a strange thinking, but I just wanted to point out that there's a reason why they weren't so quick to do a long term deal. Uh, Now that Stafford has some leverage, will he push to have a 2 year deal where his guaranteed money goes into 2026 and it's more than $4 million? He's only due $4 million guaranteed this year, which comes in March. It's a roster bonus, and that's about it. And then, he could play on that contract, but if you're Stafford, do you want to play where you don't have any more money guaranteed? It's a brutal position, it's a brutal sport. You get hurt out there, they're definitely going to cut you the following year, and that's it. You get your base salary for 2025, and you move on. So maybe do you want to get a raise? Do you want to get paid like a top 10 quarterback for putting your body on the line out there? I'm pretty sure it's thinking about it too. So if you're making around, 29 to $30 million, like for your base salary, that is nothing compared to what Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Jordan Love and Jared Goff are making. Matthew Stafford is better than those quarterbacks. So, maybe you meet in the middle where you're not making $55 million for the year, and you're making 45, maybe 46 million. And then, but you also give the team the benefit of having flexibility for 2026. Like, hey, we'll commit, 1 year of guaranteed money, but we're going to give you a phony contract with some phony years, some void years where we could get out of it next year,
Yep.
clean salary cap. We're going to move the money around to a signing bonus, this and that. So In the NFL, it's a little complicated. It's not like NBA or baseball where all that money's coming your way. So being older, everything that they've done for many years is to get younger. That kind of conflicts here with Matthew Stafford, but they don't have a plan. They don't have a succession plan at quarterback. And I don't. Do you want to pay Sam Darnold? He wasn't very good at the end. Do you want to pay Russell Wilson? I wouldn't. Do you want to work with Justin Fields? Maybe with Sean McVay, but I don't really see that one either. So, to me, they're going to meet somewhere in the middle where he gets a bunch of money for playing in 2025. So, pretty much what they did last summer, where he got 36 million guaranteed, and then a roster bonus of 4 million, which is a $40 million contract. So, something
Right.
like that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I like that because then it keeps him happy, you know. If you can go up to you can add another, add a sweetener where you add another $4 to $5 million, where it bumps it up to 45 million. That makes a lot of sense in terms of keeping him happy, and then that also allows you to stay, flexible to be able to go get a young guy out there, or you who knows. I've liked the idea what we I've heard from Fernando in terms of Zach Wilson, someone who was a high draft pick, and maybe if you develop him, he can turn into something. We've seen Sean McVay, do that with Mayfield and some other guys, Carson Wentz. So why not bring in someone like a Zach Wilson and see what you can get out of him? Maybe you can turn him into something. But while you get that year from Stafford, and while you try to find your future in the draft. So that'll be something else to kind of keep in mind there as well. But who knows where this team is going to go and how they're going to go about it. But eventually they got to go look for their quarterback of the future.
Yeah, for some reason, Sean McVay has a thing for like smaller quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett is pretty small.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield doesn't have the biggest size, but he took a chance on him. I think Zach Wilson will be under that kind of criteria. Like he has a good arm talent, but not the biggest dude. Obviously, Stafford has some size. Carson Wentz had some size. Jimmy G's a bigger dude, but he's not like a I feel like Carson Wentz and Jimmy G weren't projects for him. It was more like we need a backup. Their experience put them in here, but they took a shot with Stetson Bennett, and I think maybe he thought it could have been something with Baker Mayfield, but obviously, he went a different path there. So, I don't know what Stafford, what Sean McVay, I mean, is looking for in a quarterback in the future. What is Les Snead looking for? When they got Stafford, they already knew this guy was ready to go, and he's a legit quarterback who needed some help with the roster and some coaching, and they won the Super Bowl. So we've never really seen this before. I guess even before McVay got there, Jared Goff had that 1 year with Jeff Fisher, so that one doesn't even count for him. It counts for Les
Yeah.
Snead. So it'll be interesting if they're looking for a real quarterback to develop for the future. Maybe it could be like a Zach Wilson type, and you get to watch him in the preseason, and like, hey, maybe he could do something. Or it's more like Trey Lance with the Cowboys, and he never really did anything. So they got to take a shot somehow. Well, okay, maybe they bring in a Zach Wilson and they draft a guy in the third round. Maybe I feel like
Yeah.
second round would be a little too rich because you got
They
other.
don't have a second round pick, and
Yeah,
we'll
that's
get
right.
into
That
that.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you think I was straight around too.
Hmm.
But when they have holes in the roster and you're trying to win too, do you want to spend a first round pick or a third round pick on a quarterback? These are all things. That's the reason why they got Stetson Bennett in the fourth round. That was a reach too, by the way,
Yeah.
because they wanted probably like a plan. It just he wasn't the guy. So I could maybe see them trying to go that route again, where it's a fourth rounder, fifth rounder, and then maybe sign a veteran who's needs a second opportunity too, just in case to see what happens with Stafford.
Yeah, and I don't, I've said it. Like I like when NFL teams go and draft quarterbacks in the fourth, fifth round. You don't have to do it every year, but if you do it every other year, I like that the Patriots used to do this with Brady. Like they had Tom Brady, so they can go and take a chance on a fourth and fifth round pick. It's obvious Stenson Bennett isn't going to work out, so you don't lose anything. Yeah, you lost a fourth round pick, but at least you take a chance. I would still draft a quarterback in this draft no matter what. I mean, just take one in the fourth or fifth round and see what you can find. Maybe a Jalen Milrow from Alabama falls to you in the third round or something.
Yeah,
And we'll talk about that as
mm,
we go here
maybe a
on this.
Quinn Ewers could be a third round
Quinn
pick at this
Ewers is
point.
another one. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen what McVay can do with some of these quarterbacks, so it's not a far fetched thing to kind of see. All right, Gilbert. So now we move on to Cooper Cup, and I think he's the biggest question mark here, whether or not he'll be back. He 2025 he'll enter his age 32 season with a contract that carries a 20 almost a $30 million cap hit. If he is cut, he's got about a $22 million dead cap hit, which you said it doesn't really matter. And then if he's a post June 1st cut, he there's a cap hit on him of about 17 million. So if they wait till June 1st to cut him, the cap hit isn't as bad as it would be. He's scheduled for a $12.5 million base salary, but has a roster bonus, Gilbert, of 7.5 million due on March 17 on St. Patrick's Day. So if the Rams the Rams would save $15 million if he's a post June 1st cut. So I guess that's the biggest question here with Cooper Cup is whether or not, and then we talked about it. I think we both are kind of leaning towards he would probably need to restructure his contract if he wants to be back with the Rams, but I feel like he'll have some suitors if the Rams do cut him.
Yeah, when you're able to save that much money on the salary cap, and also you're not really a $30 million wide receiver anymore. All signs are pointing to either being cut, or he could still be cut and then come back on a cheaper deal. That we see that all the time in the NFL, or just before you get cut, maybe you revise the contract and, hey, will you take a pay cut or we're going to cut you? So I think something like that, you know, could work out. But if Cooper Cup doesn't want to take a pay cut, he wants to get all his money, and he's earned that money. He helped them win a Super Bowl. You never know, and then he'll take his chances on the open market. I just don't think he's going to get a big contract in the open market. He like even when he was on the trade market, or sort of in the trade market before that Vikings game, he was still playing well. He was getting open, but then the season went on, and like, he wasn't playing that great. And it's like, maybe that was a good opportunity for the Rams to shop him and get, like a third round pick, maybe. Now, if
Hmm.
you try to trade him, I don't think you're going to get even that. So
Yeah.
he's not the same player. He lost a step. He doesn't have the same separation, and then he's operating behind, Puka Nakua. He's not a number one wide receiver. So yeah, there'll be a team out there. They'll take a chance on him, but it won't be an expensive contract. And then at that point, do you want to go team up with a Kevin O'Connell for a contract that is what, I don't know, maybe like $8 million, $10 million, maybe, with some incentives? You never know. Or do you want to stay at home and they bring back Stafford, and you're familiar with Sean McVay, and you like working with Puka Nakua, and you come back for a similar deal? Why not? If it's like an $8 million contract, uh, with a bunch of incentives, that gets it up to 10 or 12 million. So to me, that'll probably be the best path for Cooper Cup to come back. But again, it just takes one team to overpay. Maybe he wants that, but to me, it doesn't seem like somebody who's chasing a contract. He already got his big payday. He got his Super Bowl. He probably cares more about family and staying put and being in LA, and being familiar with where he's been for his whole career. So that was a tricky one to me. But if you're the Rams, I think you have to really consider cutting him and moving on because of age and production and the price tag. But definitely make an effort to bring him back. And at that point, is what do you want to do, Cooper Cup?
Yeah, and I think part of it too is that the thing that makes it hard is that he's a big part of the community, and like he's been like Mr. Ram, it feels like, since they've been back. And so how do you want to treat someone like that? Someone that you might retire his jersey just because he won the receiving triple crown, and he won you the Super Bowl, and he was the Super Bowl MVP and all that. So those are a lot of things you have to consider. But at the same time, Gilbert, I know that this is a business, and when it comes to that, they don't care. All they care about is being able to build a championship roster, which I don't blame the Rams if that's what they do. The biggest thing I thought about, and it's not just because he's a wide receiver, but I thought about what's happened with Adam Thielen. Like, Adam Thielen was with the Vikings. He got a nice deal, and then he's kind of been he's kind of revived his career, I guess, in a way, going to Carolina. I really like the fact that he's kind of mentored a lot of those guys there in Carolina. So maybe if he finds a situation and that's something that he wants to do, But at the same time, I think about this season, Gilbert. He missed some time with an injury. He also kind of got phased out, and he's been a leader. He hasn't complained. He never complained about his role. So I just wonder where his mindset is at. We don't know. I give him credit for kind of not speaking out and making a big fuzz about it because he's a team guy. He's always been a team guy, but we'll see how he really feels. And I guess we'll know, depending on whether the Rams cut him or he decides that he wants to stay, like you said, and he takes a pay cut.
Well, the thing about and you're right, we don't know what's going on in his mind, Victor, but say he wants to get more targets and be more of a focal point, like, at this stage in his career, I don't know how many teams will line up to take him to be a number 1 wideout. Obviously, the Panthers are an exception because they need a bunch of help there, and they gladly paid for Adam Thielen there, who I think is still their number 1 there because they have some young receivers who are still working their way up, like Coker and Leggett, but having somebody that help out and being savvy and being crafty to help out the younger players. Maybe Cooper Cup could do that on a bad team, but does he want to do that on a bad team and make a good money and get a bunch of targets? I don't know. But he wants to go to a winner or probably be, say if it is Minnesota, he'll be the third fiddle. Do you want to be the third fiddle behind Addison and Jefferson? Say you want to go back home to Washington, Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf in Seattle. I don't think Rams fans want to hear that. But
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about either home contender or a rebuild. Those are probably your 3 options, right? So, if like say you go to another contender that need a wide receiver and you'll get targets, Pittsburgh could be a spot, but who's the quarterback? And then they don't have the best offense, so they don't have a track record of having a lot of options for the wide receivers in Pittsburgh. So it's all about coaching. Who has a creative play call? Who's able to give me the ball? Who's the quarterback there? Is this team close to winning? Do I care about that right now or not? So uh, he's definitely going to have some options, but I just don't think they're going to get better than what he could get with the Rams here. Like again, if Stafford's back and he's saying I want Cooper Cup back, that's probably the best path to bring him back. It just has to be a cheaper deal for him, but it's pretty clear that the production is really taking a dip here now for him. And to his credit, he was healthier than usual, right? He
Yeah.
missed maybe a couple games early on, but he was still available helping out at the end too. So, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I his leadership was huge. I think part of the reason why they went on that run after they started 1-4 was because of him, just because he just that leadership, you always need that. And especially when you have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup, those are your 2 veteran guys. There's not a lot of veterans outside of that on this team. So you need, those 2 guys were the leaders in the locker room. And now as some of these guys start to get older, you don't need that as much, especially you have a Kobe Turner who's kind of been stepping up, being a vocal leader. So we'll see what happens there. I would keep in mind though, Gilbert, in terms of teams, I would wonder if like a Ravens team would pick him up, or even a Bengals team, especially if they lose T Higgins. He'd be great in the slot there. So you never know. And then in Ben Johnson's um offense there with the Bears, that would be some another team to kind of keep in mind. We don't know what's going to happen with Keenan Allen. He might get cut. DJ Moore is still there, but as we said, you never know what's going to happen. I know they have a Doomsday, but he's more of an X guy. You would need somebody to kind of play that the slot there, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of speculation that we'll get into in terms of as the off season goes, but yeah, that's going to be a big thing whether or not they what happens with Cooper Cup this off season, and if they're willing to bring him back and at what price. But that'll be something to keep an eye on the rest of the offseason. The next one, Gilbert, that I haven't seen anybody talk about is, well, Rob Havenstein retire. He's a right tackle. He missed a bunch of time this season with injuries. He's the last remaining player from the St. Louis Rams teams. What do you think happens with Rob Havenstein? He's got about a $11 million cap hit this season coming up. Let me make sure, 11.37, Gilbert. So and that'll mean that they'll need a right tackle. I would still start looking for a right tackle replacement, even if he comes back. But what do you think the odds are that Rob Havenstein retires?
Yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. He is older, had some injuries, and he's been around for a long time. And maybe it depends too, like in what direction this team is going. You know, Again, I'm not totally convinced that Cup and Staff are going to be back for sure, just because everything this team has done is to get younger and rebuild, and they always want to be one step ahead for the future. So, say Stafford and Cup are not around, then I could definitely see Havenstein saying, "Okay, cool, it's time for the youth movement, and they need a new core group. I'm ready to retire here." Or they bring the band back together and say, "Hey, you know, offensive tackles don't grow on trees, man. I can still
Yeah,
help you guys out at right tackle. You could draft the guy, go ahead, so be it. But I have one more year left, and let's do it." So you never know, but you can't count on him to play 17 games or 18, 19, 20, whatever, how many playoff games you'll get next year. So definitely have a backup plan there. And we saw when he went down and during the season that this offense was not good. The Jonah Jackson signing really hurt them too. He didn't really contribute, and he was hurt too. And then I think Allery Jackson was dealing with a suspension. So there was a lot of issues here with the offensive line. But when Havenstein wasn't around, that was a big problem for the offense too. That's for sure. So maybe they keep
yeah.
him off of that because he's so important.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell the difference between the offensive line when you saw them play against the Eagles without Havenstein, and then with him, it was a lot better. And I think they only allowed what 2 sacks in that game compared to 5 when he was out. So he makes a huge difference, and we'll see whether or not he decides to retire or if he, like I said, if Matthew Stafford's back and Cooper Cup, it makes sense for him to be back as well. Just in terms of how much space they're going to have, Gilbert, as of right now, over the cap projects the Rams to have around $47 million in cap space. So they're going to be able to go out there and sign some guys. We'll see what they do with it. But they have 19 free agents. So I just wanted to go through these names real quick, Gilbert.
Mhm.
Uh, I want you to tell me whether or not you think they'll resign them. The first name up is Michael Hoyt.
I'll say yes. He's a great rotational player, and if he comes at a rotational player price, well, go ahead and bring him back. I don't know. Maybe there's a team out there. I give the Commanders a lot of credit for looking at players who were not getting 100% of the snaps there, but they're still a young player. So maybe somebody follows that blueprint and says Michael Hoyt is a good player. He just didn't get a lot of snaps behind Byron Young and Jared Verse, and they give him more money, and he leaves that way. But we did see Michael Hoyt be a full time starter not too long ago, and he was okay. He wasn't the best, but he's still worthy of being a top 3 pass rushers. And the more you have on your roster, the better. So I would not be surprised if somebody overpays for him a little bit, and takes him on, more of as a starter. But if they don't, definitely bring him back. He fit so well with Chris Shula and playing behind Byron Young and Jared Verse. Why not?
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I was asking Fernando a question because we had a comment asking a question, and we'll answer your question, Angel. Next up is Demarcus Robinson.
Uh, I'll say no. You have Jordan Whittington, and maybe you draft a guy or two, and Uh, but I know he has some moments, but I didn't like the DUI. He went pretty quiet towards the end of the season. He's probably dealing with some stuff too. I don't know. To me, he had some spurts here, but I'd rather see somebody else like Jordan Whittington get some shine, and you could always draft one or maybe sign one out there too.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I don't think he's back, especially with what happened with the DUI there. This is an interesting one, Akilo Witherspoon, just because they signed him late, and I thought he played pretty well, and I don't think it's going to be that expensive for you to sign him.
Yeah, if that's the same case where it's a cheaper contract and he's okay with that, then maybe they bring him back right away, and they don't do the whole song and dance here where go away, come back, go away kind of thing. So yeah, he made a lot of plays. He stepped up, and again, the secondary still needs a lot of work. But if you get to have somebody who's reliable, while you're building the secondary, why not bring him back on a cheap contract?
Next up, Jimmy G.
No, I'd rather have somebody who's might have a chance of starting in 2026. And again, I'm cool with the Zach Wilson. Maybe a Daniel Jones. I don't know about that one.
Yeah,
I've seen him play too many games where I know he's not good. But then again, Sam Darnold the same way. But
yeah,
Zach Wilson, I think he just got a bad rap. Maybe I'm okay with seeing him. But somebody like that who needs another chance there. And then even if you maybe draft one, you never know. It could be
yeah,
late first round or they take the Jordan Love path and he's on the roster, that's your number 2. So I'm
yeah,
okay with that too.
yeah. I wouldn't bring him back. I'm with you. Alaric Jackson, left tackle.
Yes, and an affordable contract. The problem here is that who's going to have some leverage because free agency is before the draft, and if you're looking for your tackle of the future in the draft, you just don't know what to draft. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah,
So have some protection in place and lock him up, but you don't want him to be the next Joe Noteboom. So you better have a plan B just in case.
yeah. I think you try to sign him on a cheap contract. If not, you take your chances with the draft or go and you have some names you're going to give us in terms of what options could be out there, and you try to see if you can sign another guy out there. Next up is Hunter Long, the tight end they got from the Ramsey trade.
No, he didn't do
No,
anything after the
yeah.
Ramsey
All
trade.
right, we're moving on.
That's an easy one.
Ronnie Rivers.
uh, maybe I think he's good. You know, special teams, good backup running back, but he didn't have the year. He didn't. His year wasn't as good as 2023, so maybe not. But obviously, he's a guy you could afford to bring him back anyways.
Last one, Gilbert. And it's a name dear to your heart. Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's got
I'm tired. I've been tired of the Tutu Atwell experience. He was always inconsistent. He gets you 3 catches a year that went over 40 to 50 yards. I don't even think he did that this year. So he had his moments when the team was banged up and he stepped up, but second round pick never lived up to expectations. Was never consistent. Never found a role on this roster. So you got to move on here. So we'll see what they do here. But I know this is the end of the list here, Victor.
yeah.
But I will definitely cut Jonah Jackson and Darius Williams. Time to move on to get some salary
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean he's Jonah Jackson has a dead cap hit. I had it here of $15 million. So you might yeah, he might be one and done for Jonah Jackson. Let's
Yeah.
get to these comments and then we'll continue on here. Uh we have Delbert who says, I'm glad you mentioned roster bonuses. There are many players with these agreements on this roster. The Rams know how to move money around and they'll figure it out. Stafford and Coop need a return. So one vote there from Delver on Stafford and Coop coming back. James Wheelock. Hey James, we haven't heard from you in a while. We're kind of worried, so it's good to have you back. We need to keep Stafford and Cup, but the Rams need another breakaway receiver, Gilbert.
Yes.
So
I
yeah,
like that. I want to see some speed. I need a vertical threat. Puka Nakua is great, you know, but he's more of a physical receiver, closer to the line of scrimmage, and he's great against contested catches and one on one. But you need somebody with a little more speed, you know, and just have athleticism to take
hmm
this next step for the offense too. They don't really have that here.
yeah, and I know with Jordan Whittington is probably if they do if Cup I mean if Cup isn't back, I can see Jordan Whittington taking his role there as his replacement. But I think a lot of Ram fans want to see more Jordan Whittington. And then yes, you can find a good receiver in the middle rounds. We've seen that, especially some explosive guys. We'll get more into the draft as we go through this off season. So stay tuned, and I'll do a little bit more research. We'll talk about some of the receivers. I do have a couple names I've already seen for the first round. If they do keep that pick that I've seen circling around, that I'll give you guys. But yeah, that'll they do need a breakaway receiver because Puka is does a lot of the underneath stuff, and yeah, he breaks he gets a lot of yak yards, but you also need a breakaway guy, and it helps too. Tutu Atwell isn't the guy anymore, and like you said, they should probably move on from him. Happy Gilmore says, "Compas, what's going on? Happy, good to hear
Hello.
from you." And then Angel had a question. He's like, not a Rams question, but is there going to be a What's Up Bold episode this week? And I checked with Fernando. He said no. They are taking a well-deserved break, so
Come on,
they will.
Angel. Can the guys just take a break and rest
Yeah.
up? It's been a long season.
He also complained like Gilbert does. He said we mentioned it on the show like 15 times. So there
Yeah.
you go, Angel.
Come on,
That is
Angel.
straight from Fernando. And then before we get to some of these, one more here. I want to Happy Gilmore says definitely keep Stafford in Cup. So everybody wants Stafford and Cup so far, Gilbert. And James says I am in a funk after Sunday's game. Laugh out loud. So he was in a funk. Totally respect
Yep.
that, but it's
Yep.
good to have you on here. Awesome to see you in the comments. All right, Gilbert. Just continuing on with what we have with the storylines. Just want to update everybody in terms of now that we know what's up, where the Rams ended up. Here are their opponents for 2025. Their home schedule goes as follows, Gilbert. They have, of course, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals, but they play the AFC South. So the Colts and Texans will be coming to SoFi, as will the Lions, the Buccaneers, and the Saints. So pretty good home schedule for SoFi next season.
Yeah, a lot of good games there, and it'll be a little tougher schedule because they're a first place team now. But
Yep. That's a
y-
first place schedule.
yeah,
Yep.
the Philly one's on the road, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the one I looked at because I'm like, you better get some better linebackers because man, you don't want Saquon Barkley to rip you off for another 200
Yep.
yards. So that one's in Philly. So get some linebackers, Leslie.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a really good home schedule. I mean, if you have season tickets, yeah, that's a really good schedule that you'll have at SoFi. And then on the road, Gilbert, of course, 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, and then Jaguars, they're at the Eagles, they're at the Titans, they're at the Panthers, and then I think the big headline one outside of the Eagles is going to be the Ravens, and then the other one is the Falcons. So Ravens and Eagles on the road, I think those will probably be
Yeah.
primetime games next
All
year.
the bird teams are pretty intriguing. Falcons,
Yeah,
Ravens, Eagles. But yeah, get a linebacker, please.
get a
I can't
linebacker.
Saquon Barkley is still running all over this defense.
Right. No, you're right. So, moving on to what they need, as you said, let's start off with the draft. So, for their draft needs, I have defensive backs, offensive tackles, wide receivers, and as you said, linebackers, and then of course the quarterback of the future. We have a couple things here. James Wheelock said need a run stopper on that defense too.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then Delver says same boat as last year. Need some linebackers, so they're all with you as well. In terms of what I've seen so far, Gilbert, for the first round, what we might who they might choose. I've seen Jade Barton, the cornerback out of Texas, who shut down the kid from and I already forgot his name. The kid from Ohio State, the freshman, he shut him down in
Smith,
the
Geno Smith's nephew.
yeah. Um, so that's somebody to kind of look at. He was probably the second rated cornerback behind Travis Hunter. And then another name that I keep seeing is Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see which way they go, whether they keep their first round pick or not. It might be wise though, Gilbert. I feel like if they trade back, just because they only have 7 draft picks as of right now, they have a first round pick, a third round pick, another third round pick because of a special composition pick. I'm guessing is one of the coaches that signed somewhere and they got a
Raheem?
special one for
Raheem Morris, maybe?
Probably, yeah, probably the Raheem Morris. That makes sense. Um, then they have a fourth round pick, their own fourth round pick. They have a sixth round pick from the Falcons. They have a sixth round pick, and then they have a sixth round pick from the Steelers. So yeah, those are the 7 picks, but they don't have a second round pick because of the Braden Fisk trade with the Panthers. That's what I'm saying. I would, if I'm the Rams, I probably trade back, try to get some extra picks, just so you have more picks to be able to pick up more players.
Yeah, I'm trying to prioritize this for the draft, but QB of the future, I don't think they should do it in the first round because again, all you keep hearing is it's not a good year for quarterbacks, and there's probably two or three that are pretty good. Maybe two that are worth the first round pick, and Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are going to go like in the top 10. They won't be there in the 20s. You don't even,
Yeah.
and they're not even as good to trade up for it too. So I will not take one in the first round. So I will probably move quarterback to like third, in the priority list. And linebackers, you don't really, draft that one that high unless it's one that's pretty good out there. I haven't heard too much about linebackers. That's the other problem too with this draft class. It's like, a couple edge rushers here, a couple wide receivers here, and then a bunch of running backs too. Like, do you get tempted and get a running back early? We don't know what's going on with Kyron Williams. You need more of a bell cow, a bigger body running back. Maybe that could be something. I think it'll be a little bit of a reach here. So for me, it'll probably be defensive back or offensive tackle. Maybe they make a move for one of these guys. Like you're mentioning for cornerback, offensive tackle. I think there are better guards than tackles here, but hey, you still need a guard. Depending on what you want to do with Steve Avila, do you want to put him back at center? Do you think he's okay at guard? Do you like Bo Limmer to be the future center, or was that just part of the story for 2024 because of injuries and Jonah Jackson didn't work out? I don't know. So maybe look at tackle there, but I think DB there might be the better talent there in terms of at least when you're looking at the drafts for priority lists.
Yeah, especially if they keep their first round pick, like and I misspoke. Uh what's his name? Jadair Barron would be the third cornerback. I forgot about Will Johnson
Will
from
Johnson, he's probably
Michigan.
a top five, top eight pick, and he'll be
Yeah,
tough to get.
yeah, that'll be tough to get unless they trade up, which will be tough from the 26th pick to move all the way up there. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm with you. Defensive back, offensive tackle has to be the priority in the early rounds, and I think receiver and linebackers and quarterback in the middle to late rounds. If you can, get somebody, I think that's where you kind of want to focus if you're the Rams, just to kind of have add some depth and be able to have more guys to be, whether it's right tackle, left tackle, as we said, or cornerbacks, linebackers. I think those will be the thing. But there's always free agency, Gilbert, and this is where you come in. These are your potential free agent targets. Let's start off with linebackers. Do you want me to put them on here for you?
Yeah, why not? Go ahead.
There you go. Here are the
Yeah,
linebackers that are going to be free agents this offseason.
yeah. I'm not saying they should chase these guys, but I'll say this though, because the draft being a little weaker, and then some of the needs that you have, you might not able to find it in this draft class. Maybe you splurge a little more, maybe, but in a smarter way, not for the big ticket free agents, more for the guys who fit your scheme, underrated players or guys who are being overlooked. That's probably the best path here for Les Snead. Again, I really like what Adam Peters did for Washington. Not a lot of big names, but some good contracts or some good players, veteran players. So these are just the top guys that I saw. I'm not saying they should go for them, but just to get familiar with some of the free agents. Robert Spillane from the Raiders. He brought a lot of physical toughness for the Raiders there. Played with the Steelers too. Dre Greenlaw, if he was healthy, he'll probably be for sure the top player for linebacker, but the injury is a little concerning. But if he's healthy, he's somebody you definitely got to take a look at. And Bobby Wagner, former Ram, this guy does not get old. If he wants to come
Yeah.
back, I don't know if Washington will let him go. The problem is he keeps going up in age that he doesn't get long-term contracts, so he's always going to be a one-year
Yeah.
guy. Maybe he's out there. I really like Bobby Wagner. He played great for the Rams too. It was just a bad team with a lot of bad luck there. Levante David, another one who just never gets old. But these are guys who are smart players in the middle, could help you out and run defense, help you out with coverage too, and just help out a young defense. So you never know, but maybe they're a little too old for Les Snead's liking. So I don't know about those two. Nick Bolton is definitely the guy who I will circle here. He's played great for the Chiefs here. Played great for Steve Spagnuolo. The only problem is he has some injury history, but pretty young. If you look what he did his first 2 years, he was really good. but it had a couple injuries the last 2 years, and the Chiefs cannot pay everybody. I bet you if they have better salary cap management there and they weren't limited, he'll probably be a guy for sure who'll come back. But he might be one of those guys they can't pay. So I will definitely circle him, Nick Bolton, and Zach Vaughn. The Eagles are probably going to take care of him. He's too valuable for the Eagles, but he
Yeah.
only got a 1 year contract. Again, like we've been saying for the last couple of days, you never know. You don't have to overspend. Zach Vaughn cost them like $4 million for the Eagles. So trust your scouting department, trust your GM, trust your team to get guys like Zach Vaughn so you're not spending too much money. The problem is you give out a 1 year contract and they ball out, they got to get paid. So maybe Philly takes care of him or maybe they don't. Who knows? Maybe they consider him a scheme guy more than a good player. So we'll see about linebacker here.
Yeah, that's a lot of good names there. A lot of veteran guys. I think the one that I like, I'm with you, is Nick Bolton. Bolton, just because he's a sideline guy. That's the kind of guy you need. But you have. I kind of want to see what they get in the development of Omar Spades. But you said get a big guy. I think someone like
Yeah.
Drake Greenlaw, if he's healthy, would be a good guy to go and pick up. You take him away from the 49ers. Robert Spillane, he's a green dot guy. He's a leader. I'm sure the thing with him was that he was looked at as a just a run stopper, but when he got with the Raiders, he actually became a good pass defender. So that's somebody to kind of look at. So I like a lot of these names. I think Bobby Wagner is a little too old, probably, but you can always use that leadership, especially if you don't bring back Cooper Cup. And then Levante David, we'll see. He's up there in age as well, so we'll see what happens there. Now your offensive lineman Gilbert, here you go.
Yeah, I'll be a little quicker here. The big prize is Trey Smith. And I'll say this before I move on with Trey Smith. After you got burned with Jonah Jackson at guard, do you want to go for another big ticket guard? I don't know. Obviously, you got to trust your scouting department and say you got to move on. Take it on the chin here. But also, is Trey Smith a product of KC? He benefited from playing with is it Creed Humphreys? And then obviously Joe Tooney being there too, and then you get to play behind Patrick Mahomes. That makes you look better when he's extending plays. So, but he's probably a top 5 free agent. He's a very good guard. Ronnie Stanley can't stay healthy, but when he's available, he's pretty good for
Yeah,
Baltimore. Zach Martin is up there in age now, maybe dealing with some durability issues, but obviously might be a Hall of Famer. Kevin Zeitler, it's where you get a little tricky too. Kevin Zeitler replaced Jonah Jackson in Detroit and played better, but also older. And then do you want to bring back another or bring in another Detroit lineman? I don't know. And Cam Robinson as a tackle, I don't. He's a tricky one. He's better than a backup, but not a consistent starter. So
yeah.
but also might command top money. He's not that good, but he helped out Minnesota after Christian Darrisaw got hurt. So if you need somebody like if you're in a pinch here, you bring him in. But he's a little risky for me. Honestly, all these guys here, kind of gave me some hesitation. You never know. Maybe Zach Martin needs a new place and he does well. But Ronnie Stanley has injuries. Zeitler's old. Robinson's so-so. And then Trey Smith will cost you a whole lot of money.
I think the biggest risk guy, but I feel like the guy that would make the most sense, especially if Alaric Jackson walks, is Ronnie Stanley. I mean, if you can get him back, and you can get whatever 10, 12 games out of Ronnie Stanley, you'll take it just because he can be an all pro type of guy, but he just needs to stay healthy. I don't think you're gonna think that he's gonna play a full season. As long as you kind of take that deal that you gave for Davius White, where it's a 1 year kind of prove it deal, you take it. I think he's the only one that kind of makes the most sense to me. Otherwise, I think they're just going to wait for the draft and try to get a guy there and hope that they can re-sign Alaric Jackson and Rob Havenstein comes back. All right, Gilbert, moving on.
Well, hold
Lastly
on.
here.
Let me give you one more. Mekhi Becton from the Eagles was also
Oh
a
yeah,
free agent. He played great at guard. He was a first round pick at tackle. Obviously, he got dropped by Jared Verse, but also he put a whooping on Christian Roseboom on one of Saquon's runs. So Becton is playing great at guard, and also you can also trust the Rams stat because I feel like when they got Kevin Dotson, nobody thought that's gonna be a big move. So maybe do something like that again too.
yeah, and I mean we've seen how one of the things I know we had a couple people complain about all the shuffling with the offensive line, but I feel like with all the injuries that go on in the NFL year to year, you need to make sure that your offensive line can play other positions, they can move around, and so yeah, I think we'll see if they keep Jonah Jackson. If they do, I think you might see him kind of be moved around. That might be an option where now you have the off season. Make sure you take care of it and see if he's willing to move. If he's not, then you probably cut him and you go and get yourself another guy to be able to shuffle around between tackle and guard. All right, Gilbert. Last ones here is your cornerbacks. You have three of them.
Yeah, I actually feel good about these guys right here. So say you want to knock out one position before you get to the draft. Uh DJ Reed, people might think that stay away because he got the benefit from playing with Sauce Gardner. But he was with Seattle, didn't really do much there until he went to New York, but he played great. I think he might have been there a year before Sauce Gardner too. So he's not just benefiting from playing a number two. The only thing is like if you are benefiting and you are maybe riding the coattails, do you want to pay him that much money? He's going to be a top 10 free agent, DJ Reed. DJ Reed, I think, told the reporter he can't wait to get the hell out of New York because it went so bad there last year. But he's a good corner. It's just I worry
Yeah.
about him being, making too much money. He's a good player, but he's not number one worthy. So we'll see. Traveris Ward, also a good player for the 49ers, did great going from KC to San Francisco. People might look at the stats and say he wasn't good this year, but he had a lot of things going on in his
Yeah.
personal life that can maybe contribute to that. But also, does he want to keep playing football? Does he feel good, ready to go?
And
These are
he
things
might
you got to
want
ask
a change
yourself.
of scenery, Gilbert,
Yeah,
just because of everything that happened this year. Not the 49ers' fault, but just,
yeah,
hey, maybe a change of scenery could help him kind of
and they have
not think of,
they have
yeah,
cap space issues too, so you never know.
yeah,
Byron Murphy Jr. He had a terrible first year in Minnesota, and then just picked it up as a second year, and he was pretty great. So, these are younger players that you can maybe get, but they might cost you a little more. I feel like Byron Murphy Jr. takes a little too many chances sometimes, but he was able to get away with that in Minnesota because they're so aggressive there that if these guys are seeing a lot of pressure and they're throwing the ball your way, that's many opportunities to get an interception, and he got that. He benefited. So, but say you're not getting pressure, you're taking chances, you might get burned a couple times here. But with the Rams, they bring a lot of pressure, so maybe he's a good fit too.
yeah. They need veteran guys. I feel like if they don't draft one in the first round, if the kid doesn't fall to them, the one I mentioned from Jade Barron from Texas, you need to make sure you get a as you said. I mean, Darius Williams is probably gone. I would resign Akilo Witherspoon just to have, as as a fit, cornerback there in your cornerback room. But outside of that, I mean, you need to go get a veteran because, especially for that defense, it'd be nice to get like a DJ Reed or a Tre'Davious Ward. Those are two good names to have. Lastly, Gilbert, I want to make sure we get to these comments. A couple more here. James Wheelock said, I would bring back Garoppolo. Delbert Sagado says, O line, right tackle, linebackers, bring Jackson Dart I think he's from Ole
Ole Miss,
Miss,
yeah.
to camp, and then of course free agents. They've been able to hit on free agents in terms of undrafted free agents, I should say. So that's been another thing. And then Michael Armenta says, have to bring back Stafford and Jimmy G. Cup needs to come back on a restructured contract for one more year, then transition to receivers coach for less money, of course. So,
I don't get
yeah,
this love for Jimmy G. Maybe that one game that he played, people really like, but I guess I'd rather have somebody who's going to actually help you out in the future as a starter and potential replacement for Stafford.
yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think just having a veteran quarterback helps a lot. Just because what happens if Stafford gets hurt, if you bring him back, I think that all matters too, Gilbert. I think if you bring back Stafford, then it makes sense to have a veteran guy. But you said there's other guys out there like a Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones. There's going to be guys out there you can go and get to be the backup. and they're gonna with McVay's track record, they're gonna want to be, they'll sign a smaller deal and to be the backup, so that way, maybe they can resurrect their career. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We have a long off season now. We still have the championship games on Sunday. We still have the Super Bowl. Like I said, I'm gonna try. Gilbert is gonna go on hiatus. He's expecting a baby now in the next couple weeks, so he's gonna be gone for a couple months. So it'll be me and someone else. You'll hear from me here. If news happens, I'll jump on and kind of do an impromptu or just go live for a couple minutes, and I'll continue to um post on the community page and kind of get you guys' feedback. And so we'll kind of play by ear depending on what happens. If there's not a lot of news, there's not a lot of things to talk about, I'm not going to try to just feed you stuff on here just to get some likes here. I want to make sure that we keep in touch with everybody. And but it's a long off season, and I hope everybody enjoys their off season. But yeah, I'll be here, and Gilbert, he's gonna take about 2 months off here, so well deserved.
Yeah, it was a good season. I'm glad, we got to complete the season 2024 and slash 2025. But yeah, now I got to get going here. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chef. Appreciate that. Good to see you in the
yeah,
comments here. And I know it was a rough week for you with Detroit there. Uh, but I appreciate the congratulations there. And yeah, I'm gonna take a couple months off. I haven't really had that much time off in a minute, but it won't really be time off. So I'm gonna be
yeah.
focusing being a parent. But I'll probably be back somewhere around early April, draft time. So I might miss a good chunk of the free agency portion, but I'm sure Victor's going to hold it down here for you guys.
It says Grandpa Pete and next 49ers DC.
Oh,
He's
is
talking
that
about
that
Carroll because they're saying that the 49ers would be interested in having Carroll be their
interesting?
defensive coordinator.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I thought he's going for a head coaching job, maybe with the Raiders. But hey, if he wants to coach that badly, why not?
Yeah, and then he's like, yeah. Shaft says, "Yep, build back stronger." So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think they got a hit on on their coordinators there, and I'm interested to see what Dan Campbell does. We'll see. Delbert says, "Big, you will do a bang up job. Thanks for a great season, Gilbert. Congrats, Puros Cuernos. Is what your baby must learn."
thank you, sir. I'm gonna let him decide and pick his own team. I'm not gonna force
Yeah,
a team on him. But yeah, being in LA, growing up in Los Angeles, maybe it will be the Rams. I will probably, if I had to, make a ranking of most likely teams gonna fall for, it's probably gonna be maybe the Rams. But the way I was raised, I care more about players, and maybe
yeah,
he'll have a favorite player on a different team. I can't make a promise.
yeah. That's just it. It all depends. I mean, you never know where I've seen people who have moved here, like Rich Eisen, other guys, and their kids just become fans of whatever team they live at. Whether it's the Rams or the Chargers. So, it also matters who the quarterback is and all that kind of stuff. So, we'll see what happens with your boy there. But yeah, can't wait to meet Julian. But yeah, for now, we're gonna that's it for this season. It was a great season. I just want to give a shout out to everybody, everybody who's been locked in with us. Delbert, Brian, who just joined a couple weeks ago, Michael Armenta, James Wheelock, who we didn't hear from for a little bit, but it's good to have him back. Happy Gilmore, our friend Alonzo. There's been other names out there, you know um Daniel Calderon, other names out there that I are slipping my mind. But I just want to give sincere thank you for this season. It was awesome. Our G Barisi as well. Great season, gents, on the draft and free agency. Next year will be real good. So yeah, can't wait to just wanted to say thank you, because it's honestly like the community that we built here, Gilbert, is all thanks to them and everybody who follows us here. And just being able to build that and have those conversations with people, and people being really nice to us about it, and and giving us great feedback to make this show even better. We'll come back stronger as well. We'll make some changes, and you might see a different background. You might see some different things, but yeah, it's all thanks to everybody out there. So I always want to say thank you because that's what we want to do. We want to have that engagement with people. I mean, we're just like everybody else. We like talking football, and whatever we learn, we try to make sure that everybody else knows about it. So that's where I'm coming from, Gilbert.
Yeah, I think everybody everybody in the comments makes it easier to have a podcast because they're bringing good ideas, things that I don't even consider or think about, and like, hey, that's actually a good point. From Delbert, Shaft, Brian, G. Barices, Michael, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Sometimes I'm up here talking, and I'm like, I already said that, and I said that, and maybe I'm being a little too negative or being too positive, and then they switch it up. So I like that aspect that people are jumping in, giving comments, and I never want to be a know-it-all here. Thank you, Chef, for that. I don't want to pretend like I know everything, but obviously, I try to stay in the know and give the best analysis I could give, and obviously, I never pretend to know stuff and say, "Oh, this is what I'm hearing." I'm more about, okay, that's probably what they're thinking. This is what this is what I feel, this and that, and it just creates good conversation, and I like that community aspect that we have here, where everybody's chiming in and nobody's saying, "Oh, well, your thoughts are dumb here. We might disagree." But for the most part, people have been very respectful of some of my dumb ideas or takes too.
Yeah, and I mean it's awesome to see.
Thank you,
So
Michael.
yeah, but yeah, I mean every year is different, and it's awesome to see more and more new people make this community grow even better and have this be able to have these conversations. And yeah, I mean another great season. The Rams make the playoffs again, and so that also makes it easy. We don't have to be super negative. I know there was a point there when they were 1-4. We were both we got called out for being super negative, but there wasn't much positivity to talk about. But I know Delver, at one point even was like, yeah, it might be time. The first time we saw him be negative was I think right after that Eagles game. So it happens, but we really appreciate everybody and for following us along this season, and can't wait for next season to, like I said, I'll be here during this off season, so I'll keep providing whatever news and notes that come along while you're gone here, Gilbert.
Yeah, I know you're gonna hold it down pretty well here, and you're gonna take some time off too. Hopefully, well deserved for you. And check out what the guys are doing on Compas on the Beat. Victor, Fernando, and Dan are planning on being in New Orleans for Super Bowl Radio Row, and they're gonna have a bunch of content there. Maybe some Rams content comes out of it too there. But yeah, check us out on Compas on the Beat, House of Horns, and What's Up Boats. And we're a four-person group here trying to hold it down. And they're gonna go to New Orleans with 3 people, and hopefully they don't mind that I'm going to be stepping away, but I know they're going to have some great content for you guys. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I can't wait to see what you guys do in New Orleans and the rest of the off season.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Can't wait. Last year we got Quinn Lake on the show. Hopefully we can get another Rams. We saw Puka walking around. We weren't able to get Puka, but maybe we can get another Rams player this year. I think that'll be something that I'm gonna try to look for and see if we can get a Rams player. I'm sure there'll be some of those guys will be out there. So can't wait for a Super Bowl radio roll.
Yep. Well, it's time to get going here. Say that's it for 2024. It's time to say our goodbyes and look ahead to 2025, the off season. See what this team does with the LA Rams. But time to get going. Again, thank you for everybody for making it a great year, making this channel something to look forward to. A couple times a week here. So on that note, ya nos vamos, pues.